Islam is not hellfire. True Islam is compassion and love and mercy and unity and empowerment and education. Islam, sisters and brothers, is already a progressive religion. We don't need anyone to reform Islam. Islam does not need reformation. Muslims need reformation. Muslims need reform, not Islam. Islam has always been a moderate religion, and it has always been about moderation. I run an organization in New York City that does a lot of work with immigrant women and also with young people. And one of the things that come up oftentimes with our young people is when I ask them why do they not go to Muslim organizations, because my organization is a secular organization. It is called the Arab American Association of New York, and we have young people who are majority Muslim, but some of whom are Christian, and others that come to our programs, after-school programs, academic programs. And when I ask young people why do they not go to some of the Muslim organizations, and one of the things that they talk about often is judgment. So for example, young women who come into some Muslim organizations and they will say to them, for example, sister, you can't pray because you're wearing nail polish. Sister, you can't pray because your hair is showing a little bit. And the judgment that our young people feel, for example, the ones that go to public school versus the ones that go to Islamic schools, when in fact the reason is many families cannot afford to send their kids to Islamic schools, so they send them to public education, and many of our children are judged for the choices that unfortunately their families have to make for many reasons that we may not understand. Oftentimes we have a responsibility as parents, and one of the other things that I talk to young people about is this idea that they don't trust their parents, that they don't feel like they can tell their parents certain things. And Brother Habib talked about this, and it's very important to us that we are our children's, not only are we their parents, but our children should see us as their confidants. They should see us as also their friends, in the sense that they can come and share with us anything. Also, as in our families, particularly with young people, and I want to focus on them because they are our next generation, they are the next leadership of our community. And if they are not coming to our masajid, if they are not coming closer to our deen, then we are very doomed as a community here in this country. The way we have been teaching Islam in many places, including the way my parents taught me Islam, was very clear-cut. There was a list. This was the haram. And there wasn't much talking about what the halal was. There wasn't a lot of talking about the positive in Islam, what we should be loving about our faith. We were taught what was haram, and if you commit any of these harams, you are sure to experience the punishment of the hellfire, right? If you do this, you are going to nar. And this is what we teach very young kids. If you lie, you are going to the nar. What we're not teaching our children is that we follow a beautiful faith and a God who is all merciful and forgiving. So when our children make mistakes, they should be able to share with us what those mistakes are. We should be able to talk our children through those mistakes and ask them to ask God from the deepest of their heart for forgiveness. This concept of forgiveness, sisters and brothers, we are forgetting, and what it is doing, it is teaching our children that if you make mistakes, there is no way of going back from those mistakes, and khalas, you are going to hell. So if our children believe that if they have made mistakes that they are going to eternal hellfire, there is no reason to ask for forgiveness, and there is no reason to go back to the straight path. This, sisters and brothers, is a very important concept for me and for how we instill in our children what true Islam is. True Islam is compassion and love and mercy and unity and empowerment and education. Islam is not hellfire. Islam is not about the bad negativities and mannerisms. And when we teach about our Prophet wasn't a punisher. Our Prophet was not an abuser. Our Prophet did not chastise people. He did not publicly criticize people. He did not tell people, don't come to the masjid because you don't look a certain way. So if we are to follow the seerah of the Prophet, then why do we engage in this idea that Islam is about the good Muslims and the bad Muslims and all the bad Muslims go to hell? This is not Islam, sisters and brothers. My children are in 11th grade, 10th grade, and 6th grade. And the way that I teach my children to be proud Muslims is I teach them about the beauty of our faith and the beauty of the examples that are presented to us in our faith. I'm an activist, and I tell my children that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was an activist. He was a human rights activist. He was a feminist and stood for women's rights. He was a man that loved animals. He was an animal rights activist. He loved the earth. He was an environmental justice activist. The Prophet Muhammad loved everyone. And most important, he loved the poor people. He loved those who were less fortunate than he. And when I tell my children these stories of our Prophet and of our deen, it makes them put their shoulders back and proud to be a part of a faith that is about mercy, compassion, and love, and a faith that teaches us to be activists and to be productive human beings. Because what's the difference between Islam and other faiths is that our religion is a way of life. It is not about us just praying 5 times a day and fasting for 30 days in Ramadan. If these are the virtues and the values that we teach within our families, then our families will be strong. Then our children will be good children. They will be respectful to their parents. If mercy and compassion and forgiveness is at the root of the individual family, then when we leave our homes, we will teach and be and act with those values outside of our community. But for me, sisters and brothers, a family is beyond husband, wife, and children. It is beyond your mother-in-law and your sister-in-laws and your cousins, right? For me, family is ummah. Family is community. The way we treat each other, sisters and brothers, in our community sometimes makes me very sad. And it brings tears to my eyes when I see how we treat one another. We publicly criticize one another. We go to masajid where there are masajid where only people from Bangladesh go. We go to masajid where only Arab go. We go to masajid where only Africans and African Americans go. And I think to myself, what a beautiful faith we have. We represent every racial, ethnic, socioeconomic, every geography. We are fortunate to follow a faith where there are people who are Chinese Muslim, African American Muslims, Arab, South Asians, and we have people, sisters and brothers, who are still today converting to Islam at a time where it's not actually the coolest thing to be Muslim in America right now. And in our masajid, we still have people that are coming to take shahada, even in the last few weeks when we have seen the most oppression and aggression against our communities. Sisters and brothers, who is your family? What does it mean to be a strong Muslim community? Oftentimes we come in here and we say, Assalamu alaikum, sisters and brothers. Think about the concepts in Islam and the terminology that we are taught to use in Islam. Sisters and brothers. You are my sisters and brothers in Islam, and I am to treat you like I would treat my own biological sister and brother. There was a story that I heard about an imam in Michigan. He was invited to a masjid, and in the masjid they were about 50% Arab and 50% South Asians, mostly Indian and Pakistanis. So this African American brother came to the masjid. Nobody knew who he was. He said, Assalamu alaikum. In the masjid, people didn't return salams to the brother, looked down upon the brother. And a few minutes later, they started the salah and they called the imam of the day to come to the minbar. And here this African American brother, an imam, got up from the back of the masjid and he walked up to the minbar. And there were people in the masjid that began to weep, sisters and brothers. Here is a learned scholar of Islam, their brother in Islam, who walked into their masjid to deliver the words of Allah and to lead a prayer, and he was disrespected in the house of God. But we are taught that he is our brother in Islam. And my question to our community and to our society is, what do we mean when we say brothers and sisters in Islam, sisters and brothers in Islam? Does that mean everybody? Does that mean people who are in your socioeconomic status? Does that mean people who are only as educated as you are? Does that mean people who are only from the same country of origin as you? Family, sisters and brothers, is beyond us. And what is beautiful about our faith is that when we stand to pray and we all face in the same direction, when we went to pray right now, sisters and brothers, we did not put the rich sisters in the front and the rich brothers in the front and the poor people in the back. We didn't put the people with the lighter skin in the front and those with the darker skin in the back. Our faith, even in the way that we practice it, teaches us about equality and justice for all people, regardless of all these other extra societal limits that we put on ourselves as people. So what I ask of you, sisters and brothers, is really to think about, what does it mean to be family? What does it mean to love your children? What does it mean to love the children of other sisters and brothers in the Muslim community? What does it mean for us to treat each other like a community and be a strong family unit, whether it be in our masajid, whether it be in the cities that we live? Because I will tell you, sisters and brothers, something very important. The struggles that we are going through now as an American Muslim community, the adversities that we are seeing, the oppression and the targeting that we are seeing, is because people see the cracks within our community. People see our weaknesses from the outside. They see the divisions of national organizations. They see the segregation of our masajid. They see in some masajid where women are given basement spaces or spaces that are unkept in front of, in comparison to our brothers. They are seeing the different treatment that we treat our daughters versus our sons. I have many young sisters who come to my organization and say, Sister Linda, I want to apply for college. And I say, what college do you want to go to? And they say to me, do you want to know what my dream college is, or do you want to know what colleges I am applying to? And I say to the young sisters, no, I want to know what your aspirations, what your dreams are. And the sisters will say, I have a 4.0 average, and my dream is to go to Harvard University. My dream is to go to Stanford University. And I say, if that is your dream, sister, why are you not applying to Harvard or Stanford? Because, sister, my parents do not want me to leave the state. My brother right now is at Harvard, and I want to go to Harvard. And I ask parents all the time, do you love your sons like you love your daughters? Have you taught your children the same values of respect and honor and faith? And do you not trust that your daughters will continue to be young and faithful and loving and respectful and honorable? That the idea that we believe our sons will be more chaste than our daughters is very problematic in our communities. That our daughters deserve the same respect and the same dreams and aspirations that we afford our sons, because in the end of the day, sisters and brothers, we raise them both the same, and we should assume that by giving them both the same education, the same values, the same deen, that they should both be able to carry themselves in that way. So when we talk about love and compassion and mercy, are we showing everyone in our community, both inside of the home and outside of the home, the same? Do we believe in our sons in the same way that we believe in our daughters? Do we believe that women in our community have just as much contributions that our brothers can give? And if we do believe that, let's look at the makeup of the boards of the masajid that we go to. There are boards of masajid across this country that are men only. But when we look at the work that's happening in the organizations, and I have seen this firsthand, and this is ICNA, ISNA, CARE, MAS, you give me the organization, and I will point you to examples of, mashallah, strong, hardworking, productive sisters who make conferences like this happen, who help coordinate, and contribute just as much as our brothers. And I want to give special credence to the brothers who have witnessed the productivity and the contributions of sisters, that we are now integrating them, incorporating in places like these stages, giving them positions of leadership in organizations, including organizations like MAS and ICNA, because we are now moving to a place of progress. We are starting to acknowledge and starting to go back to the essence of our deen, which has always been. This is another point, sisters and brothers, that I want to point out, and we've been having this debate, and folks might have been part of this debate, and I just want to use it as an example. There was a sister who calls herself a Muslim, who wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post about hijab, and basically saying that that hijab is not, something that is in Islam. And many Muslim sisters, many brothers were upset. And I told the brothers, have a seat. The sisters got this. And we debated our sister in Islam about the hijab. And what their arguments are, that Islam, we need to reform Islam. We need to make Islam a progressive religion. But for people who don't know, and one of the reasons why I believe that the sister does not understand Islam, because Islam, sisters and brothers, is already a progressive religion. We don't need anyone to reform Islam. Islam does not need reformation. Muslims need reformation. Muslims need reform, not Islam. Islam has always been a moderate religion, and it has always been about moderation. When you say people are conservative or progressive, I consider myself what people call a very progressive and liberal Muslim. My liberalism and progress does not come from my own mind. It comes from the religion that I follow. We are the most progressive when it comes to women's equality in our deen. We are very progressive when it comes to the education of women in our deen. And we can look directly at the wives of the Prophet. We can look directly at the way that the Sahaba educated their daughters. We don't need anyone to tell us about what Islam and what kind of oppressive religion our deen is, because our deen is very clear on many issues. Even on an issue that is extremely controversial in this country, abortion. Abortion, sisters and brothers, is not a recommended practice of contraception. But the fact that it is permissible in our deen based on certain circumstances makes you more progressive than the Christians and the Jews on this issue. So I want us to understand as a community that we follow a moderate religion, a progressive religion, a religion that is rooted in the empowerment of our young people and our women, a religion that is about compassion, mercy, and forgiveness. And that when we teach and when we engage in these practices and values within the small family in your four walls, and when we go out into the larger community, into our masjid, and when we take that into the larger American Muslim community, and on a global ummah level, sisters and brothers, nothing can oppress us as Muslims. There will be no adversity that we cannot stand up to or challenge if we go back to the essence and the foundations of our deen. And I ask you, sisters and brothers, for those in our community, particularly those who take, and this is not a criticism, but for those who see themselves as very religious, if your religiousness becomes about self-righteousness and ego, then it is not that you are more religious. If you use your religiousness to publicly chastise young people and push them away from the masjid, then you are not, sisters and brothers, engaging in religiosity. If you are the one that is pushing people away from the deen, including your children, then we have to question the way that we practice our deen. I want my children to be proud to be Muslims. I want my children to understand that their God loves everyone regardless of race, regardless of socioeconomic status, education level, regardless of gender, sisters and brothers. Our God is forgiving. If our children are taught that when they make mistakes, that they ask Allah for forgiveness and that our God is forgiving and will grant them forgiveness, they will love our deen more, sisters and brothers. If our sons and daughters are being treated equally by their parents and then equally by the community, this, sisters and brothers, will make them love our Islam more. So let us engage in the very principles and virtues and mannerisms of our Prophet, who never had dividers in the masajid, who treated women and men equally, who loved poor people, who was a public Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ never hid his Islam. Our Prophet loved those that were the least fortunate. And I want you to be the Muslim that makes other people love Islam, not the Muslim that makes other people want to not be Muslim. Be the Muslim that makes other people love Islam. I appreciate you, sisters and brothers. I say, may Allah bless you and bless your children. May Allah bless this gathering. May Allah bless our communities and our ummah, inshallah. Islam is not hellfire. True Islam is compassion and love and mercy and unity and empowerment and education. Islam, sisters and brothers, is already a progressive religion. We don't need anyone to reform Islam. Islam does not need reformation. Muslims need reformation. Muslims need reform, not Islam. Islam has always been a moderate religion, and it has always been about moderation.
أعطيني نصرة أنت رب رحيم دمعة سقتها توبة قلتها